Hi friends, hope all are doing good. We have completed the first three chapters of Indian Constitution work, NCERT class 11, and previously we have done election and representation. Now it's time to look at our next chapter, that is executive. And in this chapter, these are the important topics we are going to discuss. What is an executive? What are the different types of executive? Parliamentary executive in India, President and his powers, Vice President of India, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, and finally permanent executive, that is bureaucracy. So let's look at the first topic. What is an executive? So even before discussing executive in detail, we know something about executive, right? Executive is one of the organs of the government. And which are the other organs? Legislature as well as judiciary. Legislature does what? It is responsible for lawmaking, right? And executive is responsible for implementing the laws or policies, laws and policies. And judiciary is responsible for interpretation as well as protection of laws, or we can say constitution. So here it's a body. Executive is a body of persons that looks after the implementation of rules and regulations in actual practice. Executive means execution, right? Execution of what? Laws and policies. Laws and policies taken by the legislature, right? Lawmaking body. Yeah. Then there are two types of executive: political executive as well as permanent executive. Political executive as well as permanent executive. Okay, political executive consists of head of government and ministers. We can say president, prime minister, and council of ministers. And permanent executive, that is, they run the day-to-day administration, like IAS, right? So these are the two types of executive: political as well as permanent. Political, it is government, president, prime minister, council of ministers. And here in permanent executive, it is day-to-day administration. They run the day-to-day administration like IAS. And executive is a branch of the government responsible for the implementation of laws and policies adopted by the legislature. We have already seen it. So executive is nothing but executing things, executing the laws and policies taken by the legislature, right? Yes. Then different types of executive. There are two types. There are mainly two types of executive: presidential system as well as parliamentary system. Presidential system, we can see presidential system in USA and Brazil, and prime minister system, or we can say parliamentary system, here in India, right? In India, Britain, yes. So what is presidential system? There are two entities. One is state, second is government. Okay, one is state, second is government. And in presidential system, the president is the head of the state as well as head of the government. Both the state as well as government, president is head. For both state and head government, president is the head. Office of president is very powerful both in theory and practice. Like in USA, you can see president, US president appoints his secretaries. They run day-to-day administration process, everything. They are not responsible to the legislature. In USA, the president is not responsible to the legislature. But in India, it is parliamentary system, parliamentary form of system. In parliamentary system, the prime minister is the head of the government. But who is the head of the state then? Most parliamentary system have president or monarch. In the case of Britain, you can see monarch, who is the head of the state, nominal head of the state. You can see that point. So in parliamentary system, government is related to prime minister, and the state is related to either to the president or monarch. So hope you get the difference between prime minister system and presidential system, right? In presidential system, president is head of both the government as well as the state. He will be super powerful then, right? He is not responsible to the legislator. But in India, we follow parliamentary system. Here, prime minister is the head of the government, but president is the head of the state. Even though it's nominal, president is the head of the state, nominal head of the state. Or in Britain, you can see it's a monarch, right? Yes. So these are the different types of executive. Hope you understood this, right? Moving on, the parliamentary executive in India. Our next topic is parliamentary executive in India. Government should be responsible and accountable. Government in the sense executive. Executive should be responsible and accountable to whom? To the legislature, right? Yes. Executive will be answerable to and controlled by the legislature or people's representatives. What is the meaning? If they are not answerable or controlled, what happens? they take arbitrary powers, right? So it may not be what helpful for a society to live or continue living, right? Yes. So there will definitely be so many problems coming in. So executive is responsible or answerable to the legislature, in the sense to the people, to the legislative assembly, to the MPs, right? Yes. Then president is the formal head of the state. In parliamentary system, president is the formal head of the state. Or we can say in parliamentary system, or parliamentary system is also called prime ministerial system, right? Or Westminster system, yes. Then president is a formal head of the state, and prime minister and council of ministers run the government. We know that, right? President stands at the top, is placed at the top of the hierarchy, then prime minister, then council of ministers. Actually, in India, president is the formal head of the state, but government's day-to-day activities are run by the prime minister and council of ministers. Executive consists of governor, chief minister, and council of ministers at the state level. Just like at the center, you can see president, prime minister, and council of ministers. Here in state, it is governor, then chief minister, then council of ministers. Okay. Constitution vests the executive power of the union formally in the president. We know that. In reality, president exercises these powers to the council of ministers headed by the prime minister. It's a very important point. In reality, president exercises these powers. President exercises his power through the council of ministers headed by the prime minister. Advice is binding on the president. Advice is binding on the president. In other words, we can explain it as day-to-day activities of the government should be informed to the president. It's a constitutional obligation actually. So it should be informed to the president. All the activities, all the policies, all the actions of the government should be informed to the president. So actually advice is binding. That means president cannot take his own decision in every matter. Okay, every matter. Please note the point. President cannot have his own decision in every matter, because council of ministers or headed by prime ministers, advice is binding on the president. President has to do it. That's the very logic of it. Binding means, yeah, president has to do it, right? He has no other option. Yes. Not on all matters. Please note this point, not on all matters. Then president can be removed from the office only by parliament. We know that. By the process of impeachment. Yeah. The very process is called impeachment, and it requires what? Special majority. You know what special majority is. We have seen in the previous lecture, right? So the process of removing president from his position is called impeachment, and it can be done only by the parliament. Only by the parliament, okay? With special majority. Not on simple majority. It's on special majority. Okay? The only ground for impeachment is violation of the constitution. The president cannot be impeached other than violation of the constitution. Okay? Yes. So this is the only ground on which president can be impeached. Hope you understood this. Violation of the constitution. Next is discretionary powers of the president. Of course, president is not a rubber stamp. He has or he can do something, and these are some of the powers president possesses. He can exercise. Okay. Constitutionally, the president has the right to be informed of all the important matters and deliberations of council of ministers. That means right to be informed is a constitutional obligation. Okay. President can send back. I've already explained this right to be informed. All the policies and all the actions everything, all the day-to-day activities of the government should be informed to the president, right? Yes. Then president can send back the advice for reconsideration. If president think it doesn't fit, he can send back it for reconsideration. But if the parliament send it again or return it to the president again, what happens? It is binding. Okay. Yes. So receiving the advice, he is bound by the advice. President has to do it, but he can send bill or other policies for consideration to the parliament for reconsideration. Okay. Yes. President also has veto power, by which he can withhold or refuse to give assent to bills except money bill. President has to sign or give assent to money bill, but other bills can be sent for what? Reconsideration. Okay. Yes. Veto power. What is veto power? It's a power, it's actually legal power, which can be unilaterally done with what? On official actions, okay? Unilaterally, which can be imposed on what? Official actions, or it can be stopped. Official action can be stopped. That's what veto power is. Hope you understood the logic, right? Yes. Then president can just keep the bill pending with him without any time limit. It's called pocket veto. That means if something, president got something and he can withhold it with him, meaning for any time, any means for any long time. That's called pocket veto. It will be considered as what? Useless. Okay. Yes. Maybe. Yeah. Then formally the president appoints a prime minister. Formally, president appoints a prime minister. Okay. So these are some of the discretionary powers of the president. Right to be informed, which can what? Something can be, bills can be sent back for reconsideration. Then veto power. Okay. Yes. Then okay, president appoints a prime minister. Now it is vice president of India. He is elected for, or she is elected for 5 years. Election method is similar to that of president. We know all this, right? But members of state legislature are not part of the electoral college. Members of the state legislature are not part of the electoral college. But in the case of president, members of state legislature are part of the college, right? Then can be removed from his office by a resolution passed by Rajya Sabha, passed by majority and agreed to by Lok Sabha. Okay, why it's Rajya Sabha first? Because he is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. What is ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha? In the context of vice president of India, we can say vice president occupies his office as vice president. Vice president designate himself as vice president. He has an office, right? At the time of holding an office, he is engaging in another office, that is chairman of Rajya Sabha. It's an automatic process actually. So that's what ex officio is. Hope you understood the logic, right? Ex officio. Ex officio means at the time of holding an office, taking position in another office. Okay. Vice president hold his office. At the same time, he is becoming the chairman of Rajya Sabha. That's what ex officio is. Taking another position, another designation. Okay. Yeah. Moving on. Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. President exercise powers only on the advice of Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. We have already seen it. Prime Minister has had the support of majority of Lok Sabha, of course, make him very powerful. Can be a coalition government, can be a government consists of many parties. If a single party does not have a majority, many parties together forms government. That's called coalition government. Prime Minister allocates ranks and portfolios to the ministers. Prime Minister is very powerful in India. That's what it's called, prime ministerial what? Administration or okay system. Yeah. Then he allocates ranks and portfolios to the ministers. Ranks of cabinet minister, minister of state, or minister for state, or deputy minister. If someone becomes minister or prime minister without being an MP, such a person has to get elected to the parliament within 6 months. It can be to Lok Sabha or to Rajya Sabha. There are so many Rajya Sabha MPs became prime minister, like Manmohan Singh, right? Indira Gandhi. Yes, okay, it's possible. That means either house of the parliament, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Then he should or the person has to get elected to the parliament within 6 months if he becomes prime minister or minister or prime minister without being an MP. Okay. Yes. Then Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of the total number of members of the House of the People. It's a very important point. Note down the point. The number of ministers, that's what Council of Ministers is, shall not exceed 15% of total number of members of the House of the People. House of the People is Lok Sabha. We are not considering Rajya Sabha, it is Lok Sabha. So maximum 15% of the total number of members of the House of People or Lok Sabha can become Council of Ministers. Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. We know executive is responsible to the legislature. That's it. If a minister does not agree with the policy or decision of the cabinet, if a minister does not agree with the policy or decision of the cabinet he belongs to, he or she must either accept the decision There are only two possibilities. If one is not agreeing with the cabinet decision, there are two possibilities. One, he has to means agree with the decision or accept the decision, or he has to resign, because it is binding on all ministers. The decision of Council of Ministers is binding on all ministers. It is a collective responsibility headed by the Prime Minister. Okay, in the case of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the great Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he has resigned as Law Minister just because of he has some discontent in the matter of Hindu Code Bill, right? Yes. So there were issues, there were incidents. That means the very meaning is it's a collective group. If the Council of Ministers take a decision, it is binding on all the ministers. He has to agree or he has to resign. These are the two possibilities. Okay, it seems to be somewhat good, right? Yeah, a person has to. Okay, so these are the things about Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Next, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, continuing. Prime Minister acts as the link between Council of Ministers on one hand and the President and the Parliament on the other hand. Of course, he acts as a link between Council of Ministers and President and Parliament. It is because it's a legal obligation. It's a constitutional obligation actually for the Prime Minister or for the Council of Ministers to inform all the government policies to the President. It is it's given. It's also constitutional obligation of the Prime Minister for the Prime Minister to communicate to the President about the government acts. Okay, yes. Our next one is the last, permanent executive, bureaucracy. Actually, so far we have discussed the political executive, right? President, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, the discretionary power of President. Then we have seen Vice President, right? Yes. Then now it's bureaucracy, permanent executive. Executive organ of the government consists of Prime Minister, ministers and bureaucracy or administrative machinery. Civil service, administrative machinery. The term refers to civil service. Okay. Assign the task of assisting the ministers on formulating and implementing policies. Of course, we know that this executive, especially permanent executive, are responsible for implementation or formulating and implementing the policies of the government. Indian bureaucracy consists of all India services, state services, employees of local governments, technical and managerial staff running public sector undertaking, PSUs. These are the positions, okay, different, bureaucratic institutions or positions, instrument through which welfare policies of the government must reach the people. So the main task of bureaucracy is to implement the policies of the government, right? And they are they do formulating as well, formulating policies and implementing policies as well. And here you can see some of the examples for all India services, central service and state service. All India service, IAS and IPS, then central service, IFS and IRS, then state service, sales tax offices and some other services. Okay, offices. So this is all about executive. Hope you understood each and every point we have discussed. Let's have a quick recap. Executive, political executive and permanent executive. Always executive is responsible to the legislator. We have seen president system in America. President is super powerful, but in India it is we have two systems, right? Prime Minister, head of the government, President, head of the state, nominal head. Then parliamentary executive. Then discretionary power of the President. President possesses right to be informed, send back the advice for reconsideration, veto power. He can stop the government actions. That's what veto power is. Okay, it's a legal power actually. It is a legal power which can be unilaterally applied to stop government actions or executive actions. Then pocket veto. Then Vice President of India. Then Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Yes. Then finally permanent executive, bureaucracy. So hope you understood it, all the topics. This is all for the time being about executive, and we will see in the next video. Okay, we will do our next chapter. Hope you understood everything. You can start writing notes on this. Okay, always keep your Indian constitutional work with you, and okay, take care of your textbook as well as this video for preparing notes. Most of things are included in this, so don't worry. Okay, so see you in the next time. Take care.